also can inculcate or involve or put in our system that will probably help, of course, as per our requirement. The next session is a keynote on AI in HR, from potential to impact. Now, artificial intelligence is a game changer in HR, with 92% of HR leaders gearing up to expand its use. While AI has already made strides in areas like recruiting, onboarding, and performance management, the question remains, what's next? Moving beyond superficial applications, AI is now deeply integrating into core HR functions. Can it deliver on the promise and create real impact? Join us to explore AI's future in HR, what AI agents are, and how they are truly impacting your organization. Please welcome on stage Sandeep Chaudhary, CEO, PeopleStrong, who will be taking us to the same. Ladies and gentlemen, please be generous with your applause. It's a full room. Thank you. Over to you, Sandeep.
Thank you. Am I audible right at the back? Just at the back of the pandemic, maybe about 3 years back, on a lazy Sunday brunch with scrambled eggs in her mouth, my daughter popped a question, "Dad, what's AI?" I was left a little wondering, where did she, at her very curious little age, read or hear about AI? But very quickly I could figure out that it was about a friend who came visiting her favorite uncle, a very well-known sports psychologist, who really, for the 2 hours that he was home, I think for about 90 minutes, he only spoke about his new AI assistant as a friend that had really helped him collate all the historical data on the athletes that he was working with and given magic to the coaching and the mentoring that he was providing. The way I responded to her around AI was that understand that to be a clever piece of software that can literally go and consume anything and everything on the open internet and have the capability to respond and talk to you on anything that you want. She said, "Wouldn't that be like a person?" And honestly, that kind of stumped me, left me scratching my head. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure for me to be back here at TechHR, one of my favorite conferences, where I get to learn a lot more than maybe what I will ever give back to such a curious bunch of HR and technology enthusiasts. Last year, we were here, very, very thrilled, very excited, almost kind of a little arrogant to say that we're going to be the first ones to launch Gen AI embedded across the entire value chain of human capital, across the entire employee life cycle. But little did we realize over the last 1 year that there is just so much more to this entire superpower of generative AI. I certainly get back after a year in front of this wonderful audience, a lot more clearer, a lot more confident, but I must say also a lot more curious and worried on the rapid advancement, adoption, and the gains that we are essentially seeing on generative AI. In India, which is clearly leading the pack across Asia Pacific, we've seen 93% of students and 88% of the employees that walk into your company doors every day already playing with this piece of technology. We'll talk a little bit more about why and what's really going on in terms of its adoption in the organization and the business context, but clearly this usage will continue to go through the roof over the next many, many years. We are in fact going to be envisaging nearly about 182% increase in its daily usage. We shouldn't really be surprised if much of the output that we're essentially seeing is being generated in a very, very effective manner through the superpower. I also don't really know how did they really calculate, but I did read that overall, it has actually helped humanity save nearly about 7.5 hours of productivity in a week. Now, if you're a Narayan Murthy fan, that's about adding another day to a week, which is about 8 days. If you're a French person, you will essentially say that you've reduced your working days to 3 days now. But I must say that a large part of generative AI is no more abstract. It's really the real thing which is being developed. We see the adoption. We're clearly seeing the gains right in front of us. If I was to very quickly also just look at the entire intertwined way of humanity and the evolution that we are essentially seeing with technology, we continue to see one landmark after the other. Nearly about 1 billion people just in the last 1 year have essentially had some kind of an affair with one of the large language models. We were very quickly to judge that AI isn't really creative, but yet we see AI to be an endless river of creativity. It can do poetry, it can do imaging, it can do videos, it can even start to write scripts for comedians and yet retain the authenticity and the originality of that script. We were again very quick to say that AI cannot be empathetic. And constantly we are seeing ourselves engage with this technology in a very meaningless and a frivolous way. Like one of the most asked questions to OpenAI during the T20 World Cup was, tell me how much is Virat Kohli going to score in today's game? And yet in a very meaningful way where I clearly took a lot of inputs out of GenAI to be able to structure my thoughts on how can I make it real for this audience to understand the impact of AI on human capital, HR employees, and so on and so forth. It certainly takes us a little bit to know where is that we're coming from, to know where is that we're headed. We're all quite familiar with the many large language models, whether that be Google's Gemini, Anthropic's Stability AI, or Meta's Llama. This was really a very large AI model that could very quickly simulate very, very huge amount of data, really get trained on it to understand its pattern and be able to respond in a very intelligent, clever, and a highly responsive and a thinking way. We very quickly after that saw the entire advent of multinodal chatbots. Now, this was fundamentally the time that AI actually democratized itself. It was available to everyone. It was on our palm tops. We started to play a lot with it. But at that point in time when it started, it was largely limited to its textual capability. We would send a textual prompt, and we would get a very well-articulated response. Very quickly, just over the last 1 year, we've seen this gain more intelligence, video capabilities, imaging capabilities, write poetry, and so on and so forth. Even be able to do coding, which was considered to be a pretty skilled job just about a few years back. It's not the plaything for the developers to stay within the closed rooms. It's clearly something which is out in the open, available, democratized, everyone to essentially be able to use. And then we saw the co-pilots, as Satya Nadella rightly said, the co-pilots are both lowering the floor as well as raising the ceiling, both at the same time. The co-pilots were really the ones that came across as very smart, intelligent assistants that very quickly understood your prompt. But as the word co-pilot would essentially suggest, there was a pilot in charge. So they took the command and they executed on that task. As we are essentially getting into the future, I guess the way I'm really going to structure the next few minutes that I have with you is very quickly walk you through some of the elements that we did speak exactly at this conference about a year back and some of the most popular use cases with over 400 of our customers, and then take you a little bit more onto a future forward journey of what really is next. And as the comparer said, we are going to be talking a lot more about what's the journey beyond the co-pilots where I'm leaving this conversation right now. If you get some time, I'll certainly like to bring the architect of all of this, what we are essentially doing at PeopleStrong, to ask a couple of questions that I think will really make it a lot more real as you take some of those inputs back into your offices on Monday morning, and that's how we'll conclude the session. If at all we have some time, we will certainly like to get some questions from the audience. A year back, when we said that we are going to be the first ones to be able to embed generative AI capability across the employee lifecycle, and we did show you several amount of use cases across our talent operating system, I'm very quickly going to zoom into the two that we did. One, in the space of performance. There's a very mundane activity of goal creation that every enterprise goes through. There is an annual operating plan that essentially gets created before the start of the financial year that very quickly needs to translate itself into a set of goals and cascade it right from the CEO to the last man or woman standing in an organization. In the traditional sense, this exercise would essentially involve a consultant or two and maybe at least about a quarter. The Gen AI capability, the large language model that was contextualized on your industry and on your company data could very quickly throw out a draft of your OKRs or of your KPIs right from the CEO. As you would essentially see here, Aman Verma has already started to use generative AI to create his goals and be able to nominate his direct reports to be able to create a draft and so on and so forth. And that's really the progression where in a matter of a day or two, you're able to cascade the entire goals to the entire of your enterprise. Now, if you basically just get into the semantics of this, there was an intelligence that essentially came in from a large language model of the industry that you were essentially talking about. You trained that on huge amount of data for your own organization, so it was a lot more contextual to not just your industry, but now you as an insurance CEO in the larger insurance or a life insurance organization, and be able to build out that was nearly about 90 to 95% accurate to what we really want to do. In fact, when we did go back to many of our clients, we saw that they really, over a period of time, as they trained that entire system, they didn't have to make more than 5 to 7% of edits to really get it down to a very, very final version. We also will talk a little bit more about our talent coach. We looked at the talent coach to fundamentally democratize how HR was operating in organizations. Gone are the days when we are talking about 1:100 as a HR to an employee ratio, and we said, why shouldn't every employee get that very, very personalized input to be a lot more effective and be playing to the best of their potential? And this is fundamentally the role that we created for Talent Coach as a co-pilot to essentially help a person who's recently gotten promoted to get set up for success in his or her job. You will start getting inputs on what training programs to do, who are the similar kind of peers who've got promoted or got this job, and how effective were they, what kind of training have they essentially taken. Many a times, if you essentially allow, it can even pull data out of the larger industry. Since we are a SaaS company, we would essentially be able to get you instances from many other organizations in your sector or in your function, and so on and so forth. But I guess if this is really what the role of a co-pilot was, it is about time that we talk a little bit more about what are the agents supposed to do. A fundamental difference, as we essentially see between co-pilots and agents, and then again, I would just say in the word co-pilots, it's very evident that there is a pilot in charge. So fundamentally, it is a very smart, intelligent assistant to each one of you. You would ask it to do something, which is fundamentally the prompt that you will send in, and you would get the task executed. A great difference between an AI agent and a co-pilot is fundamentally on one variable, and that is autonomy. The degree of agency or autonomy that an AI agent would have would make it a lot more proactive and autonomous. Let me take a very quick example. You throw out a prompt to a co-pilot, help me get a job description done. And it will pull out a very smart job description, almost 100% accurate to what you want in your industry context and in the context of your company. And that's it. It wouldn't go any beyond that. You look at an AI agent and you throw out a prompt to say, get me a job description done. It would be intelligent enough to very quickly understand that you want to be able to create a job requisition, will on its own take it and post it on several job sites, would also get into your internal portal and fish out and dish out candidates that would actually meet the criteria for which you're creating a job description, and so on and so forth, almost end up giving you suggestions on candidates that are available from the external world versus the ones that are available within your organization. Would it make sense, maybe 20% cheaper in case if you were to take a bet on someone who's nearly about 80% ready from within the company as opposed to someone who's coming 100% ready from the external market? So it clearly went a lot beyond just giving you your job description. In the performance management parlance, co-pilots at best can meet expectations. And your AI agents will consistently exceed your expectation. And in this entire world of AI agents is fundamentally where we are currently seeing the evolution. And I can tell you, in this entire world of technology, the headlight vision that we have is just for the next few months. I really don't know how this AI agent will metamorphose itself into being something else, which will, again, take us on a very, very pleasant surprise ride. And this is the time that, ladies and gentlemen, I certainly want to be able to introduce you to our PeopleStrong MAAX, the multi-agent architecture-driven experience that we are essentially going to be talking about, which is in the beta testing in our laboratories. We are already working with a set of our clients, and we certainly believe that over the next 1 year, that's fundamentally how we will revolutionize the life of our clients and the employees that walk into their enterprises to work on a daily basis. We are transforming our co-pilot called Ginny into a larger AI agent. It's going to be a Ginny agent. You would essentially see that literally across the entire life cycle. If I was to pick up onboarding as an example, onboarding would essentially have multiple actors. There is a very admin part to onboarding where you certainly want to be able to allocate seat. You want to be able to give them an onboarding kit. It would have the swipe cards, the visiting cards, asset allocation, laptops, and so on and so forth. And here is going to be a live conversation that we will essentially play where the onboarding specialist is asking the AI agent, the onboarding agent, to onboard Vinita. And very quickly on its own, it will essentially start to fish out all the documents that Vinita has to submit before her joining date. It will go and integrate itself from wherever the documents need to be collected, whether she can submit it on WhatsApp, whether it needs to go and seek the permission to get into DigiLocker or whatever that would essentially be. But really, onboarding for Vinita would be transformed into an incredible experience as opposed to a very mundane admin job where she's just completely consumed in filling in papers and reams of papers and so on and so forth. It will also very quickly go a step further and tell Vinita about the number of courses that she needs to take to be a lot more effective right from the day one of a job. She would essentially, again, go back to the onboarding specialist and seek permission if I need to be able to set her meeting up with her manager or maybe a few of her peers. That would be very, very critical for her success in this enterprise. Let's look at another very quick ER agent. Now, the employee relations agent is where, again, we are trying to democratize the power of HR. We don't want to be creating FAQs. Almost about 70% of the queries from every employee is quite the same. And here is an ER agent, and we're taking an example of help me save tax in my compensation structure at this point in time. It is going to be sitting on your HR policies. It will essentially understand the grade and the function and the location that the employee is essentially coming in from. It will very quickly be able to look at everything that needs to be done to structure a compensation that could be very, very effective. It would go and sniff out whatever investment proofs you need to essentially submit to be able to claim and make that much more tax efficient for yourself. It will also seek and tell you that while you've made it as efficient as you possibly could, basis your understanding of being tax efficient and compliant, but you're leaving out a couple of opportunities around NPS or something else out on the table. Would you allow me to give you a little suggestion on what is the money that you could essentially save if you were to make an NPS declaration of X amount on an annual or on a monthly basis? You fundamentally look at the power of AI agent where it is contextual, it's conversational, and it is guiding you in a certain manner to be able to make the most effective decision on the initial simple prompt of help me suggest a very tax-efficient structure for my compensation. The last of our model is on analytics. And here is where you're going to be setting up a team that can lead HR digital transformation in your organization. And with that as generic as a prompt, you would very quickly be able to understand what are the profiles of people who have some kind of skill sets that this is essentially throwing up for us. How many of these people can I very quickly check as an agent who would be interested in volunteering for this particular project? What's their current fitment with what's really required to be staffed on this HR digital transformation project? What kind of training courses can I further suggest to them for them to be a lot more ready as they essentially come and have their day zero? With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to take a very quick 1 minute to introduce the Chief Architect for PeopleStrong MAAX, Vishal Saha. He's our Chief Product Officer. Hello. Welcome, Vishal. We've already got a time ticker. I want to be able to make it very, very quick. Give a sense to us, what was your biggest concern when you were envisioning the entire world of AI agents in PeopleStrong and for over 400 of our clients?
Sure. So, see, one of the most topmost concerns that people typically have is of data security and privacy, which of course, it's table stakes, and we made sure that PeopleStrong MAAX architecture is built from ground up to keep security in mind. However, I would quickly like to talk about another major concern that typically people have with AI models, which is hallucinations. So all of us would have heard of ChatGPT hallucinations. Most recently, even Meta AI was in fire because of saying that, it said that the Trump shooting didn't even happen. So this is like AI model cooking up information and saying something which is false or incorrect. Now, in case of enterprises, this could be disastrous. So that was a key concern for us while making this architecture, that how we can ground the LLM, how we can make sure that it's giving data or responses only basis the enterprise context and documents and data. So that's what we did. We built a confidence score system in our architecture so that only very high confidence responses are being sent to the agents. There are multiple quality checks, etc., that we built, which ensures that we are giving accurate responses.
And last, Vishal, what's your suggestion on how organizations can think about implementing these agents?
Yeah, so one thing is very, very sure that organizations should have very clear objectives. So whether they want to improve the employee experience, employee productivity, or customer experience, for instance. Also, it's important to have the basics right. Your data and your information your processes should be in the right shape, so that, because AI is like any other technology, you put garbage in and it will throw garbage out. So that has to be very, very clear. Also, last thing that I would say is that technology is not linear. So if you have the basics right, you have done step A, you need not do step B and C. You can directly move on to D, which is, let's say, AI agents in this case. And start small, start with some key focal pain points that you have in the organization, and then expand. So that's in a nutshell.
Thank you, Vishal.
Thank you.
Very quickly, ladies and gentlemen, just to conclude, as I said, there is nothing artificial about artificial intelligence. It has IQ, it has EQ, and now, as we've essentially seen in the world of the AI agents, it even has AQ, which is the action quotient. It's really our endeavor as PeopleStrong to be our partners in this entire journey where we will fundamentally be wedded to empower the entire work life by bringing joy, energy, and meaning, and more through technology as we will continue to see. I hope to see you next year, but most certainly a lot more over the next couple of days. Thank you for your time and thank you for your patience.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you very much. I'm sure AI will be a game changer and is already a game changer in the HR landscape. Now, next up, we have a very interesting fireside chat on skills-first hiring, a game